But it added, so after having the baby, I had a lot of chronic pain. Really bad pain, and it was unexplained. They didn't know, but I remember going in and they're like, "You have the spine of an 80-year-old." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, they said you have a degenerative disc disease, a joint facet disease, arthritis in your spine, but they didn't have a diagnosis at that time. And I was like, they're like, "Here's pain meds." So then came on the pain meds. So I was on Xanax and pain meds, and then I couldn't function and I was too tired, so they gave me Adderall. And so it's just this like cycle of like, I was on all the drugs.
Downers and uppers.
Yep. Yeah. And I did that for a while, and I ended up overdosing. I was on, at the time it was like Xanax, Ambien, and then I was on Ambien too. So I was on.
I can't believe you could eat. I mean, I guess you couldn't function, but like Xanax and opioids and Ambien. I mean, that is zombie time, right?
Throw an Adderall.
And then throw some Adderall in there, which just yanks your brain up into some sort of cohesion, and then you go back down. I mean, that's
it was not
unbelievable.
Good.
So you OD'd.
Did it for years. Yeah, I OD'd, and I actually went into a psychosis because I took 5 different drugs at once. And I wasn't trying to hurt myself. It was just like I was so into just taking whatever, and ended up overdosing and went into psychosis. I pulled my passport out and I was showing my husband. I was like, "Look, I just got a letter from Parks and Recreation. They want me to be the stylist on their show." And then I'm like, "Oh, John Mayer's calling me." Like completely.
So explain to the people, because there's psychosis a problem all by itself, and sometimes the ultimate of that might be schizophrenia.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of diagnoses where something induces psychosis.
It was chemical induced.
So drug-induced psychosis. Yeah. Explain to people what psychosis is.
So it was basically like I was hallucinating. Like I just saw things that weren't there. I heard things that weren't there. It was like I was in a whole other reality.
But you believed it.
I believed it.
So it's the hallucinations, you're right. So any of your sensory organs can be involved in that, right? And then delusion, right? So believing that John Mayer's calling you, unless he really was.
I mean, he calls me all the time.
Yeah, okay, all right. And I know he's got my number too, and it's really annoying.
It's great.
But like believing that your passport was somehow a letter to be on Parks and Rec, like this delusional thinking, and it is the person's reality.
Yes, and it's wild. And I'm great. Like in hindsight, I'm grateful for all of these experiences because I can look at someone who's suffering in any situation and be like, I'm not gonna judge your situation because I know that like it's insane and it feels so real, and it was absolutely crazy. It was a trip, and so I had to go into a detox center after that.
So what was it? A physically dangerous situation? Did you have to be seen by EMT? Or
no, I mean mine was like it was.
Did your husband panic and not know what to do?
He didn't know what to do. And I actually, at a point, like, I remember being in the car and he was playing a song and he's like, "Do you know?" Because I stopped talking. And he was like, "Do you know what song this is?" And I couldn't even speak it. I couldn't even say what my favorite song was. And so I was just mute and just kind of dead. Like, there's nothing going on. And so he took me into a hospital. I don't remember a lot of it. I remember thinking, this is so weird, that if you go in the TV room and you stomp around, you can get free shoes. So I would just be stomping around in circles thinking that I was getting all these free shoes.
Some Prada?
Yeah, totally. Hopefully.
Isn't that, I mean, we look back on it and we feel, however, sometimes people feel embarrassed or they think it's kind of humorous. But in those moments when a person is psychotic, that's their reality, and it can be very scary.
It is terrifying. And there were some really scary things I saw and heard, and finally, I detoxed off the meds, and I was working with doctors, and they're like, "Okay, you're good." And they told me some things to remember when I first got there, and then by the time, if I told them back, I was able to get discharged. But honestly, as crazy as it is, it took me a while to even believe that didn't happen, like the things weren't real. After the meds went off, because I thought I was getting an SUV. I thought Parks and Rec was giving me an SUV to be. I was a wardrobe stylist at the time for a record label, and so being hired as a stylist in LA, like it was something possible. And so like it took a while, and it was really sad and hard to see my husband at the time watching me go through this. But even then I didn't go to rehab right away. I was just like, "Oh, I'll manage it."
So they sent you back out because you repeated the things to the doctors.
Yes.
And did they give you the prescriptions again? Were you supposed to take them again? Do you know?
I think that they weaned me off and gave me a little, but I worked, you work the system.
Oh, yeah.
I'll find new doctors. I'll find a new way. Because, when you're in that mode, it's like, this is the only way or I will die. Like, this is the only way I can function. There is no other way.
Mm-hmm.
So in the hospital, you didn't have an epiphany where you realized, I've got to stay away from You probably thought, I just need a better cocktail.
Yeah.
So you're back, and then does it get ugly again for you?
It what? Oh, I'm trying to think of what happened next. Sorry, there's a lot of pieces to the story. So at this time, I was dealing with really bad chronic pain, and so I was actually bedridden most of the time, and I was not doing well, and I started running out of my Xanax. And so I thought, well, alcohol could be like Xanax for me. And even though it's against, at the time, my values, because I'm Mormon and I'm not supposed to drink, but I'm going to talk to my husband. And we had this really unhealthy codependent relationship where I'm like, okay, I need alcohol. It's like I ran out of my Xanax. I'm going to have a panic attack. I'm going to have to go to the hospital. I need alcohol. And so he kind of got on the same page, and we decided I'm going to start drinking. My first time, it was like I was on a plane and my sister took a shot, and I was like, oh, I want to try that. And I had my first shot, and I was like, oh, this is it. And so that's when I went back and was like, oh, I need to make this part of my cocktail, my routine. And so once I started drinking, it all went really, really ugly because I hadn't been drinking at that time. After the drinking, he would have to check if I was breathing every morning because I was taking pills on top of it, and so he would.
This is so dangerous.
Oh, I know, and I was wildly depressed at the time too. So it was like I felt dead inside. It was like I have nothing to lose, which is and at the time, so I was bedridden most of the time. I had no connection. The connection I had was with substances. And I really wanted to have another baby. And because, and I actually got misdiagnosed and was told I had a pituitary dysfunction, and I got put on all these hormones. And because of the hormones, I ended up gaining all this weight. And the weight gain triggered my unworthiness and my unlovability because I was treated different. My image has always been a huge thing for me. And so people wouldn't open doors and smile and just little things. I'm like, oh, well, if my image is my worth, and no one is treating me like I'm a beautiful person, I am unworthy, unlovable.
And up till this point in your life, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the part of you that you worked on developing.
Yes.
No blame.
Yes.
But that's just the circumstances,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And on top of that, you're a wife and a mother,
Yep.
and in your belief system, those are primary.
Yep.
And so you're giving to your husband, you're giving to your daughter,
right.
And once that external image goes away, what's left?
Right. And it actually triggered this search for worthiness and a self-love journey that led to my first time to go to rehab. But I wasn't functioning as a mother because I was like, okay, well, if my worth is not my image, then maybe it's being a mom. So let me just put all my effort into that. But I was in level 10 pain with drugs on top of it. So I couldn't do all the things. I couldn't make dinner and go grocery shopping and do the dishes and do bath time. So then I'm like, again, what is my worth? I'm unworthy again. I'm not fulfilling all of these things that I'm supposed to be doing to be worthy. And then I discovered Brene Brown's work about vulnerability and authenticity and worthiness. And I was like, wait, maybe I'm worthy as is. Maybe I'm just worthy. And so I kind of started playing with this idea of worthiness. And I had a job at the time, and I asked my boss, who also was using drugs, and I was like, hey, I ran out of my meds. I need, could you hook me up with weed? And he was like, listen, I would go on the streets. I would do whatever you need, but I think you have a problem.